One of the most powerful blood sugar medicine ever known was never manufactured in a laboratory, never patented, never sold in a pharmacy, because for thousands of years it didn't need to be. Modern medicine tells you that managing blood sugar is a lifelong pharmaceutical commitment, that insulin resistance is a one-way door. But there is an older story, written not in clinical trial papers, but in the medical texts of ancient Egypt, in the physician records of imperial China, in the botanical scrolls of the Islamic Golden Age. And what is extraordinary is that these civilizations, separated by oceans and centuries, documented the same plants doing the same things to the human body, long before anyone had a word for insulin. Two plants in today's list are going to genuinely stop you. Plant number 4 is sitting in your kitchen right now, and a 2019 clinical trial confirmed it reduces fasting blood glucose by up to 29%. Plant number 9 was preserved by an 11th century Arabian physician specifically for what he called the disease of sweet urine. Modern researchers have since isolated the active compound. No pharmaceutical drug has ever replicated its mechanism. If this channel is new to you, subscribe. We go back to the original sources, the oldest healing tradition humanity has ever documented, and we bring it forward into the language of modern science. Here are the 10 forgotten foods that lower blood sugar and reverse insulin resistance naturally, ranked from powerful to extraordinary. Every single plant and supplement I mentioned today is linked in the description below. I've done the research so you don't have to. Plant 1. Bitter melon, Momordica carrantia. Bitter melon is a vegetable that behaves like a drug, and the ancient world knew it long before modern endocrinology had a name for what it was doing. The Charaka Samhita, written in India around 600 BCE, prescribed a bitter knobbly fruit for madhumeha, the condition of honey urine. Traditional Chinese medicine documented the same fruit for the same purpose during the Han Dynasty. Caribbean folk medicine, developed entirely independently, recorded it for the same constellation of symptoms. West African healers, too. 4 medical traditions, 1 plant, 1 condition. That is not coincidence. That is convergent empirical observation across millennia. Inside the body, bitter melon deploys 3 compounds simultaneously: charantin, vicine, and polypeptide P. Think of them as a 3-key locksmith arriving at a door that insulin alone can no longer open. Polypeptide P mimics insulin at the cellular receptor. Charantin promotes glycogen synthesis, and vicine activates AMPK, the same metabolic master switch that Metformin, the world's most prescribed diabetes drug, is designed to target. A 2011 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology followed 95 type 2 diabetic patients for 3 months. Those receiving 2,000 milligrams of bitter melon extract daily showed significant reductions in fructosamine, a reliable marker of medium-term glycemic control. How to use it: 50 to 100 milliliters of fresh juice on an empty stomach each morning, or 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of standardized extract daily. Caution: it can compound with insulin or sulfonylureas. Introduce slowly and monitor. Bitter melon works at the receptor. The next plant works upstream, at the moment your body decides how much glucose to release. Plant 2. Berberine, Berberis species. If one compound has single-handedly changed the conversation between natural medicine and clinical pharmacology, it is berberine. Found in the roots of Berberis aristata, known in Ayurveda as Daru Haridra, and in Coptis chinensis, the Huang Lian of Chinese medicine, berberine was documented in the Huangdi Neijing around 200 BCE for conditions of internal heat and excessive fluid loss. Persian physicians documented it separately. North American indigenous healers used Oregon grape, another berberine-rich plant, for systemic illness. Every major healing tradition on earth found it. That is not coincidence. That is convergent pharmacological discovery. Berberine activates AMPK with greater potency and through a more direct pathway than almost any other botanical compound. Think of it as the difference between nudging a thermostat and rewiring the heating system. It increases insulin sensitivity in muscle, reduces hepatic glucose production, and slows carbohydrate absorption, hitting blood sugar from 3 directions at once. The landmark clinical evidence came from a 2008 study in the journal Metabolism. Researchers randomized 116 type 2 diabetic patients to Berberine or Metformin for 3 months. Berberine reduced HbA1c by 2.0%. Metformin reduced it by 1.8%. Pharmaceutical companies cannot patent a plant. Dosing: 500 milligrams 2 to 3 times daily with meals. Begin at 1 dose daily and increase gradually to avoid digestive discomfort. Berberine resets the metabolic thermostat. What comes next does something almost architectural. It changes how your cells receive the signal itself. Plant 3. Gymnema sylvestre. There is a plant in the rainforests of India that, when chewed, temporarily destroys your ability to taste sweetness. Ancient healers saw this and understood something profound. A plant that blocks sugar at the tongue might block it in the bloodstream too. They were right. The Sushruta Samhita, dating to around 600 BCE, describes Gurmar, destroyer of sugar, specifically for Madhumeha. African traditional medicine arrived at the same leaf independently. Japanese Kampo medicine documented it for the same wasting thirst pattern. That is not coincidence. That is the body's own chemistry recognizing what it needs. Gymnemic acids, the active compounds, are structurally similar to glucose molecules. Think of them as decoy keys that fit into the sugar locks along your intestinal wall without turning them, blocking glucose absorption before it enters the bloodstream. Long-term use also appears to support regeneration of insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas, a finding that, if it holds, would mean a plant helping to rebuild the very machinery diabetes destroys. A 1990 Journal of Ethnopharmacology study followed 22 type 2 diabetic patients taking 400 milligrams of Gymnema extract daily for 18 to 24 months. All showed significant reductions in fasting glucose and HbA1c. 5 discontinued diabetes medications entirely under physician supervision. Dosing: 400 milligrams of standardized extract divided across 2 doses before meals. Gymnema compounds with medications. Introduce cautiously. Gymnema blocks the door. The next plant changes who holds the key, and it's already in your kitchen. Plant 4. Fenugreek, Trigonella funum. This one is in your kitchen right now. You may have used it as a spice and never once imagined it was doing something precise and measurable to your blood sugar. Fenugreek seeds appear in the Ebers Papyrus, an Egyptian medical text dated to approximately 1550 BCE, one of the oldest written medical references on Earth. Egyptian physicians prescribed it for wasting, thirst, and weakness. Avicenna included it in his Canon of Medicine in 1025 CE, carrying more than 2,000 years of documented metabolic use behind it. Indian Ayurvedic tradition documented it simultaneously and independently. Ethiopian medicine, too. The spice that crosses nearly every ancient cuisine was not just flavoring, it was medicine. The mechanism centers on 4-hydroxyisoleucine, a compound found almost exclusively in fenugreek. Think of it as a metabolic interpreter. It stimulates insulin secretion from the pancreas precisely when blood sugar rises and quiets when levels normalize. The seed's exceptionally high soluble fiber content simultaneously slows gastric emptying, blunting post-meal spikes at the source. A 2019 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology tested fenugreek seed powder in 60 type 2 diabetic patients. Those consuming 25 grams daily showed a 29% reduction in fasting blood glucose after 8 weeks. HbA1c dropped significantly. How to use it: 10 to 15 grams of seeds soaked overnight in water, consumed in the morning, the classical preparation. Or 500 to 600 milligrams of standardized extract twice daily with meals. Caution: mild blood thinning properties. Use carefully with anticoagulants. Fenugreek has been in your spice cabinet. The next plant has been hiding in your morning cup. Plant 5. Cinnamon, Cinnamomum verum. For most people, cinnamon is a baking spice. For the ancient world, it was a metabolic corrective, and modern research has now explained precisely why. Cinnamon appears in Chinese medical texts as far back as 2700 BCE. It is referenced in the Ebers Papyrus. Avicenna documented it for digestive fire and blood thickening, imprecise language that maps, in retrospect, to glycemic regulation. Ayurvedic tradition used it for metabolic balance. Sri Lankan and Chinese traditions documented it simultaneously. That is not coincidence. That is a spice teaching us its function for 5,000 years. The active compound is methyl hydroxychalcone polymer, MHCP. Think of it as a skeleton key that fits into insulin receptors on muscle and fat cells, activating them even when normal insulin signaling is impaired. MHCP mimics insulin at the receptor level. Cinnamon also slows gastric emptying and inhibits carbohydrate-digesting enzymes, creating a double effect on post-meal glucose. A landmark study published in Diabetes Care in 2003 followed 60 type 2 diabetic patients taking 1, 3, or 6 grams of cinnamon daily for 40 days. All 3 dosage groups showed fasting blood glucose reductions of 18 to 29%. LDL and triglycerides dropped significantly as well. Dosing: 1 to 3 grams of Ceylon cinnamon daily, not cassia, which contains high levels of coumarin that can stress the liver with chronic use. Look for Cinnamomum verum specifically. Supplement form: 500 milligrams once or twice daily. Cinnamon unlocks the receptor. The next plant addresses why the receptor stopped working in the first place. Plant 6. Turmeric/curcumin, Curcuma longa. No plant in the last 15 years has generated more research than turmeric, and yet the ancient world beat modern science to every one of its discoveries by at least 2,000 years. Turmeric appears in Ayurvedic texts from 500 BCE, described as a remedy for inflammation and what ancient physicians called ama, toxic accumulation that maps remarkably onto modern systemic low-grade inflammation. It traveled the Silk Road into Arabian medicine. Hawaiian traditional medicine used it. West African healers used it. Polynesian traditions too. Every civilization that encountered the rhizome found the same properties. That is not coincidence. That is the most broadly confirmed anti-inflammatory signal in the botanical world. Here is the metabolic connection most people miss. Insulin resistance is, in large part, an inflammatory condition. Chronic low-grade inflammation triggers cytokines that physically interfere with insulin signaling at the cellular level. Think of it as static jamming a radio signal. Insulin is broadcasting, the cell has a receiver, but the inflammatory noise prevents the message from getting through. Curcumin is one of the most potent natural suppressors of the NF-kappa B pathway, the master switch that produces that static. A 2012 randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study in Diabetes Care followed 240 pre-diabetic patients for 9 months. Those receiving curcuminoid extract showed 0 progression to type 2 diabetes. The placebo group, 16.4% progression, 0 versus 16. Dosing: 500 milligrams of curcuminoids standardized to 95% twice daily, always taken with piperine, black pepper extract, which increases absorption by up to 2,000%. Most quality supplements combine them. Caution with blood thinners at high doses. 6 plants, 6 independent mechanisms. And you have seen a pattern that should be impossible to dismiss. Civilizations that never met, documenting the same botanical remedies for the same metabolic conditions with the same specificity. If this kind of knowledge matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. We release new content every week, and we are only halfway through. Everything I mention is linked in the description below, including where to get it. Plant 7. Mulberry leaf, Morus alba. Mulberry leaf is one of the best-kept secrets in metabolic medicine, and the ancient Chinese physicians who documented it were about 2,000 years ahead of the curve. The white mulberry tree has been cultivated in China since at least 2700 BCE. Li Shizhen's Bensao Gangmu, the monumental Compendium of Materia Medica, completed in 1596, describes the leaf as a remedy for Zhao Ke, the wasting thirst disease. That is classical Chinese for diabetes mellitus. Japanese Kempo medicine adopted it independently. Korean traditional medicine documented it for the same condition. Indian texts reference it for metabolic complaints. That is not coincidence. That is a leaf consistently revealing its chemistry across the oldest medical traditions on Earth. The active compound is 1-deoxynogeromycin, DNJ. Think of it as a molecular impersonator. DNJ mimics glucose so convincingly it fools the enzymes that break carbohydrates down in the small intestine. By occupying those enzymes, specifically alpha-glucosidase, it prevents complex carbohydrates from becoming simple sugars, dramatically blunting the post-meal glucose spike before it enters the bloodstream. This is the exact same mechanism as the pharmaceutical drug Acarbose. Mulberry leaf got there first, by millennia. A 2017 randomized controlled trial in the journal Nutrients tested mulberry leaf extract in 37 subjects with impaired fasting glucose. The treatment group showed significantly reduced post-meal glucose spikes and improved insulin sensitivity markers over 12 weeks. Dosing: 1,000 milligrams of standardized extract 30 minutes before your largest meal. Classical form: 3 to 4 grams of dried leaf steeped as tea. Caution with diabetes medications. The glucose-lowering effect is real. Mulberry leaf blocks the carbohydrate gate. The next plant rebuilds what lives behind it. Plant 8. American Ginseng, Panax quinquefolius. There are two great ginseng traditions in the world, Asian and American. And while Western medicine spent centuries treating ginseng as folk remedy, researchers have spent 2 decades confirming what Native American healers documented long before European contact. American ginseng was used by the Ojibwe and Haudenosaunee as a restorative for fatigue, weakness, and metabolic decline. When European colonists exported it to China, Chinese physicians immediately noted its similarities to, and distinctions from, Asian ginseng. 2 continents, 1 pharmacological family. That is not coincidence. That is the body recognizing what it needs across hemispheres. The mechanism centers on ginsenosides, saponin compounds unique to the Panax genus. Think of them as a metabolic repair crew. They increase glucose uptake in muscle cells independent of insulin, improve insulin secretion from pancreatic beta cells, and reduce oxidative stress in the islet cells responsible for that secretion. Supply side and demand side addressed simultaneously. A study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine in 2000 tested American ginseng in 10 type 2 diabetic patients. 3 grams taken 40 minutes before a glucose challenge significantly reduced the post-meal glucose peak compared to placebo. Timing mattered. The effect was not seen when ginseng was taken after eating. Dosing: 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams of standardized extract daily, taken 40 minutes before meals. Look for products standardized to at least 4% ginsenosides. Caution with warfarin and certain antidepressants. Ginseng repairs the factory. What comes next was preserved by an Arabian physician for a reason that will make you wonder why no one talks about it today. Plant 9. Nigella sativa, black seed. In the 11th century, Avicenna wrote in his Canon of Medicine that black seed stimulates the body's energy and helps recovery from fatigue. He prescribed it specifically for the disease of sweet urine. He was describing diabetes, and the compound he was observing, thymoquinone, has since become one of the most studied phytochemicals in modern metabolic research. Nigella sativa appears in the Ebers papyrus of ancient Egypt. Seeds were found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. Islamic tradition records it as a cure for every disease except death. Ethiopian medicine, Unani medicine across the Arab world, and Indian Ayurvedic practice documented it independently for overlapping metabolic conditions. That is not coincidence. That is the oldest global botanical consensus in recorded history. Thymoquinone addresses the root disorder underlying insulin resistance, mitochondrial dysfunction, and oxidative stress. Think of it as a cellular restoration crew addressing a factory running on damaged power generators. When cells accumulate oxidative damage from chronic high blood sugar, their mitochondria become less efficient, insulin signaling deteriorates further, and a destructive cycle accelerates. Thymoquinone interrupts that cycle by scavenging free radicals, reducing lipid peroxidation, and restoring mitochondrial membrane integrity. No pharmaceutical drug replicates this mechanism. A 2019 systematic review and meta-analysis in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology analyzed 12 randomized controlled trials on Nigella sativa for glycemic control. The pooled data showed statistically significant reductions in fasting blood glucose, HbA1c, and insulin resistance markers across all populations studied. Dosing: 2 to 3 grams of cold-pressed black seed oil daily with meals, the classical and most bioavailable form. Caution: lowers blood pressure and clotting time. Use carefully with antihypertensives and anticoagulants. Black seed works at the mitochondrial level. The final plant takes the oldest perspective of all and may change how you think about healing entirely. Plant 10. Banaba leaf, Lagerstrumia speciosa. Banaba leaf is not well known in the Western world, not because it lacks evidence, but because no pharmaceutical company has ever successfully synthesized what it does. The banaba tree grows across Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent. In the Philippines, it has been used for at least 1,000 years, called the miracle leaf in traditional medicine documentation. Philippine healers brewed the leaves specifically for patients showing excessive thirst, frequent urination, and wasting. Indian Ayurvedic texts reference it for metabolic and urinary conditions. Japanese Kampo medicine documented it too. That is not coincidence. That is a leaf teaching Southeast Asian healers for a millennium what their bodies needed. The active compound is corosolic acid, and its mechanism is unlike anything else on this list. Think of it as a cellular escort service for glucose. Corosolic acid activates GLUT4 transporters, the molecular gates in muscle cell membranes that allow glucose to enter the cell. In insulin-resistant states, these transporters stop migrating to the cell surface, leaving glucose stranded in the bloodstream. Corosolic acid activates their migration independently of insulin, bypassing the broken signaling cascade entirely and opening the gate from the inside. This is the key insight. Insulin resistance does not destroy the cell's ability to absorb glucose. It disrupts the signal that opens the gate. Corosolic acid opens it without the signal. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial published in Diabetes Research and Clinical Practice in 2003 tested banaba leaf extract in 31 type 2 diabetic patients over 2 weeks. The treatment group showed a 30% reduction in blood glucose. The researchers identified corosolic acid as the primary agent. Modern medicine knows how to create synthetic insulin sensitizers. It does not know how to create corosolic acid within the full botanical matrix that appears to modulate its activity. The original is more sophisticated than the copy. It always has been. Dosing: 500 milligrams of banaba leaf extract, standardized to 1% corosolic acid, once daily with a meal. Traditional form: 3 to 4 grams of dried leaf as tea, twice daily. Caution: effective glucose lowering. Monitor carefully alongside diabetes medications. 10 plants. 10 distinct mechanisms. Here is how to combine them intelligently. Week 1. Begin with fenugreek and cinnamon. Both are food-compatible, accessible, and gentle. Fenugreek seeds soaked overnight, consumed on an empty stomach. Ceylon cinnamon added to your morning meal. These lay the digestive and receptor-level foundation. Expect no dramatic shift yet. You are building the substrate. Week 2. Add turmeric with black pepper and black seed oil. You are now addressing the inflammatory root. Turmeric suppresses the NF-kappa B pathway. Black seed oil restores mitochondrial integrity. Begin black seed oil at 1 teaspoon daily. Increase to 2 by week 3. Many people notice improved energy before they notice blood sugar changes. That is the mitochondrial restoration coming first. Week 3. Introduce Berberine and Gymnema Sylvestre. These are the most pharmacologically potent pair on the list and belong after the inflammatory foundation is in place. Berberine at 500 milligrams with your largest meal. Gymnema at 400 milligrams before meals. This is typically the week when continuous glucose monitor users begin seeing measurable flattening of post-meal spikes. Week 4. Add mulberry leaf before your highest carbohydrate meal and banaba leaf once daily. These are your last-mile defenses. Mulberry blocks carbohydrate digestion at the gut. Banaba opens the cellular glucose gate from inside. Together, they complete the architecture. American ginseng and bitter melon rotate in at any point from week 3 onward, based on access and preference. Ginseng is particularly valuable when fatigue accompanies blood sugar dysregulation. Bitter melon is most effective taken as morning juice on an empty stomach. What to expect? Weeks 1 and 2 are preparation, not transformation. By week 4, most people notice reduced post-meal energy crashes and steadier energy throughout the day. Meaningful HbA1c changes take 3 months. That marker reflects an entire red blood cell life cycle. Give this protocol that time. A final word. Nothing here replaces your physician's care. If you are on diabetes medications, monitor your blood sugar carefully as you add these botanicals and communicate with your doctor. They work, and they can compound powerfully with pharmaceuticals. This protocol is restoration alongside medicine, not instead of it. Medicinal form: 3 to 4 grams of dried leaf as tea twice daily. Caution: effective glucose lowering. Monitor carefully alongside diabetes medications. I want to speak directly to you for a moment. Not about mechanisms, about what brought you here. If you are watching this, chances are you have been living with numbers that worry you. Fasting glucose levels creeping upward, an HbA1c your doctor says needs to come down. Perhaps a diagnosis that felt like a door closing. Perhaps a family history that feels like a sentence. You came looking for something that respects your intelligence. Not empty promises, but a real understanding of why. The ancient physicians who documented these plants were not guessing. They were observing, patiently, across generations, the responses of the human body to the natural world. They didn't have mass spectrometers, but they had something we are only beginning to appreciate again: time. Thousands of years of careful human observation. And what they wrote down, civilization after civilization, has been quietly confirmed by the very science that once dismissed it. Your body is not broken. It is responding to inflammation, to processed food, to a world it was not designed for. And what it responds to, it can respond away from. Nature remembers something about healing that medicine temporarily forgot. The healing was never lost. It was only forgotten. If this video gave you something, a tool, a perspective, a sense that more is available to you than you were told, every plant and supplement from today's video is linked in the description below, the exact products ready to go. Please like it and subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment. Which plant surprised you most? Or tell me what brought you to this video today. I read every one.